Alright, we're gonna dedicate another video on HEX because a lot of people just don't like HEX anymore and a lot of people are moving away from it, which means most of the time in the market when everyone's moving away, you should probably look at it and look at it in a bit of a deeper way than most people do. So it's actually very obvious. I did it in a few videos as well. I look at the HEX chart and I see this and it's quite stable. Stable, I mean, it's quite shitty, especially if you know the history, like going from 50 cents to 0.0, like what is it? Yeah, 0.7 cents or 0.8 cents. It's pretty bad. But as far as chart structure, it's actually quite okay, and everyone is, acting like the world is on fire. Well, it kind of is, but not necessarily for HEX. I mean, it's pretty bad, and I'm not gonna lie, it hurts. It just sucks really bad. But also, when I put my feelings aside, I look at this chart and then I think, I wonder what's behind the chart. I wonder what's actually happening within the system. And for that, I always go to HEX Daily Stats. What I want to show you and what I found out this week is that this is all the data for the HEX on Ethereum. But let's just first look at the HEX on Pulse Chain, yeah? So this is the HEX on Pulse Chain. And for every day we see all this data, right? And you can look it up. It's a hexstats.today. What I find interesting is I scroll all the way to the right. And then I see here current holders, which is 343,583. And you see the change in current holders, which is 45. Which I guess is from yesterday, and then how many people got in yesterday, basically, or how many addresses at least. And what I find fascinating is that, look, if numbers go down, if the wallets go down, the number turns red. So it makes it very easy to read, because you can just scroll down and you see more white than red, way more, like maybe 90, and I would say 95, 98% of every day is a positive outcome of more people holding. And you can see that we are at an all-time high of current holders. And every time this is a white number, we are at an all-time high of numbers, basically, or at an all-time high of people holding the coin. Or at least addresses. And that's as far as we can get, I guess. Which is completely fine. Here you can just see that people, so what I see most is people moving away from HEX, saying it's dead, saying that the price won't recover and that it's not valuable anymore, and that it failed, basically. But then that's fascinating, because that's just the people that are talking. But the people who are buying, apparently, are people who are buying HEX and are still valuing it, because otherwise why would you buy it? Now, what I find interesting is that this goes hand in hand with a complete capitulation of stakers. Like, everyone, look at this. It's so crazy to me that where the current holders is 95% white, the change in current stakers is 95% red. Like, it just keeps on going down, which I find fascinating. And it makes kind of sense, because there's more places to get proper yield right now. But I think at some point that's gonna change. But then it's already like the XT-share rate has already gone up so much. And that's the amazing thing. You just can see the market running away from people, and they are not noticing it. People are just buying it, and then they're not staking it, which is completely fine to me. It just shows that the system is getting more valuable because more people join, but less people are using the system, which then benefits me as a staker, because I get more yield. Because the less T-shares there are in the system, the more yield I get. Which is amazing, because you get more yield now for a system that is constantly growing in value still. How insane is that? Now, what I wanted to show as well is that, look, this is the hex chart, but it's a hex chart in dollars. And before Pulse Chain was a thing, our biggest liquidity pair was with USDC. So it would make sense to look at the dollar. The other one was with ETH. So you kind of had to look both because sometimes they were kind of almost the same, the same amount basically. But overall, I think if I remember well, I think USDC pairs were the most dominant, and so it makes sense to look at a price chart in dollars. But if we go to the search bar and we type in HEX, what do we see? We see HEX paired with Pulse with a liquidity of $24 million. And then the rest is 340, 470, and that's done with ETH. And I guess, I don't know if, I think this is the EHEX then. Yeah, EHEX, definitely. Look at this price. Yeah, but if you look at the PX, what we're gonna focus on is you just see, pennies compared to the 24 million paired with Pulse. Now, I get that most people don't understand liquidity providing and don't understand pairing and how it influences price, which, like, I understand it, but it also baffles me because it's kind of basic math. Basically, it's just ratios. So I don't know what's there not to understand. But money, what this means is that there's the most amount of money is in this pair. So HEX and Pulse Chain. And so when you want to buy HEX, most of the money goes through this pair. And so most of the money actually first has to buy Pulse and then buy HEX. Basically, if you do it, like let's say you want to buy HEX with USDC, then an order router is going to route you through Pulse Chain and then to HEX. Now, whatever Pulse Chain does, HEX will be dragged with it because most of its liquidity is paired to Pulse. So if no one is trading HEX, let's say, and then Pulse Chain drops 50%. Okay, so if HEX is, we're just gonna have simple numbers. If HEX is worth 10 Pulse Chain, and Pulse Chain is dropping 50%, then if no one trades HEX, one HEX is still worth 10 Pulse. But the dollar amount has dropped by 50% because Pulse dropped in 50%, but we are still valuing HEX in Pulse because that's the biggest liquidity pair. You see how the dollar value is just moving with whatever Pulse does? If no one's trading HEX, of course. And that also has its own ramifications if that happens. And there's trading everywhere, right? But in general, in theory, and in the way you need to see this market is Pulse Chain is going to change prices and then it's going to reflect in the HEX price, even though no one is selling, basically. Because if you look at this pair, you see this in the dollar chart, right? It just goes up and down, up and down. It's basically in this channel. But if you click up here and chart it against Pulse, which is actually the most important one because it's the biggest pair, you see something completely different. It's a completely different chart. And I'm not going to say anything about this of what it's going to do or whatever. I'm just telling you this is a completely different chart and this is the one you should look at. Because either this is going to overperform against Pulse and you should hold HEX basically, or Pulse is going to overperform and you're better off waiting a little bit in Pulse to buy HEX back later. Why I'm saying this now is because yesterday there was this giant dump basically and we're still busy dumping. But then if you look at the HEX, this is the daily chart. Look how stable this is over the past, I don't know, what is this, 2 weeks? Yeah, this has been more than 2 weeks. Look how stable this is. And we can even zoom in with the 4-hour chart. Look how stable this is. Now sure, we had this volatility over the last year and it's, yeah, there's a lot to say about that. But people that are saying that HEX is dead and HEX is, yeah, the price action is bad, and no one is quoting these pulse chain numbers. Everyone's quoting these US dollar numbers, which is fine because we did that first and now it's changing. We need to change with how the world is changing. And at the beginning of pulse chain, Alex from Hedron, he said it best. We basically changed from a solid ground, basically, which was USDC, because USDC is always worth $1, right? We basically moved from that to having he said a jelly ground, I think, but I prefer the word trampoline. So basically you switch the ground from concrete to a trampoline, which means if you go on the trampoline goes down, right? But it also goes up a lot stronger if you jump. And so what this actually means is that you could be paired to the dollar, and then you have your your movements in the chart, right? Or in the movements in the price. And that's basically it. But if you're paired with Pulse, then you're also reliant on what Pulse does in price, basically, if no one is buying HEX. And so where I'm getting to is, if Pulse Chain goes up a lot and no one is buying HEX, then HEX is going up in dollar price a lot as well. And so you need to think about that when you see the HEX chart, because the HEX dollar chart, which everyone is quoting and which everyone is looking at and everyone's hoping that it's going up, is not the actual chart that you should be looking at. You should look at the chart of Pulse Chain, because that's the biggest liquidity pair. And then I would even argue you don't need to watch the chart, because you know the value is going up of the system, because the current holders is constantly going up. And it's not like, is what I'm saying, like, this is the entire history. Let me go down through it. This is 1,500, what is it? Almost 1,600 days of increase of holders. Now you have these moments in 1,200 days. Not sure what happened here. But overall, you see that the majority of the numbers is white, which shows you that there's health in this system. And you can have all these narratives that you want. You can have all the whining and the crying and the emotions that you want, and I get them all, because the price is just completely wrecked. But that's just basically just because Pulse Chain launched, because there's so much things moving now, and things need to stabilize. The people that are rational and understand this and see the statistics for what they are, and see the statistics and see the opportunity within there, because first of all, you get more yield if you stake, but also the number of current holders is constantly going up while the price is stable or going down. And it is already super suppressed, because there's barely anyone in profit, basically, in HEX. Most people got in above 1 cent, right? So how many sellers are left? That's my question. And how big is the opportunity? Because all this time we've grown numbers in holders. We've grown numbers in people that know what it is, or at least have it on their radar, have it in their wallet, so they're incentivized to pay attention. That's what I wanted to say, because most people have faded HEX, and I think it's become a little ridiculous, because the statistics show that it's actually pretty bullish. It's just that the feelings suck and the price sucks. But I guess that's opportunity. And you don't have to like it. It's not fun. But that's how we win.